Hello, and welcome to Building Loved Businesses, where we explore what it takes to create companies that people love to work for, buy from, and partner with. I'm your host, Nathan Schock, and today I'm joined by Shawn Weyer, founder of Weyer Companies, a drywall and painting company known for quality, execution, and a structured path to bring tradesmen and turn them into leaders. Now, Shawn started painting with his dad when he was 13 years old, and he faced a big crossroad back in 2010 to decide, where am I going to go with my future? Am I going to go all in on the trade, or am I going to pursue another line? And I'm looking forward to hearing that story and what the sticky note had to do with it. So he's now turned that into a 40 plus person team with lots of subcontractors and a leadership system and a systematic approach to business that's ready for even more scale. So we're excited to hear this story today. Shawn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the introduction, and that's a great way of summing things up in a very short amount of time there.
Well, we do our best. Okay, so for people who don't know the Weyer Companies, and let's go a little deeper than that short intro. Just give us the quick snapshot. What does the company look like today? Who is your customer, and what are the kind of projects that you love to do?
Sure. Well, we do a wide array of projects, drywall and painting. And it's actually, I like to say painting and drywall. So we started as a painting company, and we did a lot of repaint for apartments when I started. But I grew up in the trades doing a lot of repaint for um, residential homes, very difficult style projects, 40-foot ladders. I remember one overlooking downtown Stillwater where we had 3 sections of scaffold, a ladder from the scaffold onto the roof, and my dad holding my foot at the very top of the roof, painting the corner of a cupola. So that's kind of the backstory of the type of projects that we had done in
Note
for
to
residential.
OSHA. Note to OSHA. This is beyond the statute of limitations.
I was strapped off and everything, but still, yeah, it was quite the view from up there at least. So,
I bet.
but yeah, we do painting and drywall from new construction, residential existing properties, and then what we call property painting. It's not really a phrase I don't think that's used much, but in the rental world. So if you have rental properties, we do a lot of turning of apartments so they're rent ready for future tenants.
Got it. Okay, so take us back to 2010 and give us the sticky note story.
Sure.
And how you decided to stay in Fargo and build, I think you called it Wire for Hire. So yeah, just take us back 15 years to that sticky note.
Sure. So, well, in 2010, that's when I was graduating college, and um, my pursuit was to run a business, but as a chiropractor. So I had gotten all my prerequisites for chiropractic care and my business degree. So that took 6 years to do. So I was taking managerial economics and organic chemistry at the same time. So pretty hectic school schedule. My now wife of 13 years was graduated with PR and advertising. So I had visited St. Paul area or Minneapolis area at Northwestern School of Chiropractor. And the goal was to move there, continue my education with my graduate to be a chiropractor. And, you know, it was 3 and a third years. It was 36 credits per trimester. And it was about $100,000. And I had started a small business in Fargo, just myself and helpers here and there. And my first year of business, first year of as an independent, while going through that final school year, was like I grossed $82,000. So I was really weighing this out, thinking about this, and I had talked to the head of the chiropractic division or whoever it was down there that I was being recruited from. And, I knew I could always go back to school. So these thoughts were going through my head. And all I remember is walking into our rental, walking through our white door, sat down on the couch, talked with Rachel and said, hey, we need to make a decision. And I pulled a sticky note out that was a client of ours. And I just wrote stay on the top, and I wrote pros and I wrote cons. And I said, hey, let's talk about actually being serious about staying here and pursuing this small company that had started to kind of get us through school. And let's go ahead and weigh this out of whether we should move to Minneapolis or not. So I wrote pros and I wrote cons, and some of those pros were, we really looked at Fargo from a family perspective. This is a great community. It's a great place to be. And we had some, and long story short on that, we had some momentum on a small business that we had started. And some cons were, what I went to school for, what I put the time in for, and more opportunity for Rachel. And those were, I guess, the summed up versions of the pros and cons. So there was that. And then one more thing to that, I guess, is I realized looking back at it is that I wrote stay at the top. I didn't write stay or go. I think subliminally, I think we always kind of had a thought of maybe it was subconscious in my head that I did want to stay and pursue this business.
Yeah. So interesting. Right. And then those things, that decision that really charts the path. Right. And
yeah.
In an instant there, I guess over time, but a little bit over time, you're thinking, man, what's going to be the direction of my life? I think of a recent episode. I interviewed Pierce Lohman of Lohman Earthworks out of the Quad Cities. And he, very similar, started mowing lawns when he was 13, ran 2 crews all through college as he got his engineering degree, and then was faced with this decision. All of his classmates were going to get high paying engineering jobs, right? And now, do I really want to go back and run a lawn mowing and landscaping business? And now he looks back and is so glad he did. But what he said is, what tipped the scales for him was the thought of, if I don't try this on my own, if I don't go all in on myself, will I look back someday and wish that I had? And was there a piece of that for you?
Not as much. I think so. A little bit more to the backstory. While going through high school, I fought at a very high level in boxing, so I was very competitive, and I always kind of, it was just me in the ring, and that was a frightening thing. I had 135 fights, and that was very nerve-wracking, and those nerves go away to a certain point. But I thought this business thing was kind of easy, to be honest, right in the beginning. Little did I know. But I was like, man, all you got to do is just show up, do what you say you're going to do, and get the job done. And man, and if you fail, you can fix it. Like if you fail in the boxing ring, you get hit and it hurts and you're embarrassed in front of a lot of people. You're almost performing in front of people, and someone else is trying to take your head off. So I compared that a lot while going through the early years of business. And that was my thought to it, was, man, if I can do this, then, I just kind of went on that. The only thing that was really tearing me was, I knew I was going to do business, but it was that pursuit of what type of business.
Yeah.
And that was kind of that was the tearing moment for me.
Got it. Okay. So now you've made the decision. You're staying in Fargo. You're going to build Weyer Companies. And as we talked about before, Shawn, one of your obviously earliest influences, you started painting for your dad when you're 13, right? So talk about those lessons you learned from your dad, and then how you translated that into the constant grind in your business.
Well, he had mentioned, like, you work when you have work, and you don't ever pass that up, because there was a lot of times going through those younger years with him in the summers where he just didn't have work, and the jobs that he took were like those backbreaking ones that I was telling you about, where I'm, up on a crazy incline roof, and we always did these really difficult jobs that no one else wanted to do. So When I got some momentum in Fargo, I had work every day. So I literally worked in the field every day with whoever I could help to propel and get the job done for 5 years straight. And I had maybe 15 days off. 8 of those days was to get married, and went off somewhere where I had to like legitimately pull myself away from the work. And that's beside the calls, that's beside the emails, that's beside some of the back end stuff that Rachel helped a lot along the way. But yeah, that was that grind.
Yeah. And then after the grind in the field, you still had a business to run, right? So
Correct.
You're doing that stuff after the work. Now, take us to that time where you realize, whoa, we're going to hit $1 million this year, right? And you started to think about, how do I continue to grow this thing, and what does that mean for my role?
Yeah. Well, there's always that lever. I think, the numbers. The numbers are always a way to measure where you're at, and you always have that pre-goal. You think about this one, what about that $1 million mark? Let's go for this, and then I just kind of put my head down in the sand and went. And before I know it, when I looked up, I was like, oh, we're here. We have something going. Now we're not just building a business or building independence between just doing the work. Now we have an organization. Now we need to try to build an organization. So I started to look for organizational structure, and EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, helped a lot with that. The book Traction, I met with a group of people that were essentially a CEO solutions group that was teaching this. And I'm like, oh, that's what I need to know. And that's really when I started to look a little bit further than, the next week or the next job, or just making sure that we're getting the jobs done.
Yeah. All right. So now, one of the hardest things for any entrepreneur, and I've interviewed a lot of them on this show, is transitioning, right, from doing the thing that they love, right, doing that activity, being in the field, and seeing that immediate, the immediate positive feedback, right? If you paint something, at the end of the day, you can visually see the progress, right?
Yeah.
Now you're having to, over time, extract yourself from that and bring that same level of attention and care and love to running the business. So talk through how you did that, how you pulled your hands off the spray gun and got into running the business.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I literally was offered. I was tested in that moment. So there was a time where I was visiting one of our crews, and our main guy was there, and everything is prepped. And so when you walk into a project, one of the main coveted things to do in painting anyways is spraying. But there's a lot of prep work that it takes to get up to that moment. You're sometimes prepping for hours upon hours just to spray for like 30 minutes. But everybody wants to do that piece, because that's where you see the big difference. And I walk into a remodel. My lead on the job looks at me. I look down. There's a sprayer sitting there. There's a big chimney fireplace that's just ready to be sprayed. And let's just say his name is Scott. He looks at me and he says, "That sprayer's got your name on it." And I looked at him. I said, "No, Scott, it's got your name on it." And then I left. That was a big moment for me to walk away from that position. But I knew I needed to, in order to allow others to grow. Another position that I was in that helped get out of the field and make sure that I was focusing on other things to help others grow was the moment where I realized that one of the changes that I needed to make physically was I just needed to change my clothes. And I need to change my work boots mainly. It's not even the clothes, because I would sometimes wear different clothes or different pants, but I could change those quick. But when I went to the job, I wasn't so propelled to stop what I was doing and just get tied into it. So when I changed my shoes, that helped me distance myself a little bit more from just jumping in along with the guys, and really immersing myself in the job and looking at it from a more holistic view.
Yeah, I want to hang here for a minute, because I work with a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, and a lot of them struggle with this, right? I literally sat down with one last week, and she knew she needed to give up more things and said, but I'm just a control freak, right? So this is a universal thing.
Yeah.
And it's even though there are these moments of epiphany, right? Like
Yeah.
changing your boots, declining the sprayer.
Yeah.
It's more of a process, right? Because we're always tempted to say, oh yeah, we're going to give it up. And then we come to a job site and we're like, you did that wrong, change this, do that, right? If we call it the seagull management,
Mm-hmm.
swoop in, make a bunch of noise, swoop out, right?
Yeah.
So what were some things you had to do, Shawn, to slow, again, just peel yourself away from that micromanaging the work?
Well, you have to put the people in place. You have to set them up for success, to give them opportunity to fail. And you have to allow it to happen. Like there's no other way around it. They need that opportunity to go ahead and do it. And then they need to know it's okay. So you give them that distance to go ahead and do the job, put the SOPs in place. So then it comes down to process and systems. So how are we going to set this up so they know these things as much as they possibly can to learn and to make those mistakes on their own and then report back.
Yeah.
Show them, let them show you, and then don't just say, well, I'm not going to be in the field. And then you see, and then you see it didn't work. It didn't work. That's not me.
Yeah.
That's not the right approach. We need to set them up properly. I'll give another example. And I think there's another thing within this that is the office jockeys, so to speak, and then the guys in the field that are doing the hard work. And there's always this like conflict between the two. And the way that I explain this the best is the digging a 6-foot hole and solving a Rubik's Cube. So I tell my guys in the field, I said, hey, if they always talk about the guys in your cushy desk and you're on your computer and you get to go home. I said, but they're solving problems though behind the scenes, whereas you're in the field and you're getting stuff done there and it's needed. But if I gave you a Rubik's Cube to solve and I told you to dig a 6-foot hole, which one would you do? And most of them would say, well, I'd dig the 6-foot hole because I don't know how to solve a Rubik's Cube. I said, exactly.
Yeah.
That's where the magic happens. It takes time to figure out this problem. And that's how we work cohesively together to be able to dig the 6-foot hole, because that's the activity that needs to happen as part of the service. And then here's the Rubik's Cube that we need to work through and solve and test. And that's where the mental fortitude comes in the back end of that. So I try to use that example a lot between the two.
Yeah, great. And it's so important, right? Because the business will plateau if you're not able to do this, right? If someone's not running the business, if that entrepreneur doesn't get out of the field, that business will stop growing at some point, or at least grow a lot slower. One other key thing, again, as I talk to business owners, is narrowing the amount of work you did, right? You mentioned with your dad, when you're an entrepreneur early on, you got to take basically anybody with a credit card, right? It's like whatever job they've got, yep, I'll do that. Mm-hmm. But I was just talking to another entrepreneur who realized he had to stop doing all these custom jobs, these one-offs, the different ones, right? Because those required him to be in the field. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that really has impressed me about you and the Weyer Companies is you have a very clear set of avatars, right? It's like we do this work. So talk about how you evolved to that and what those avatars look like.
Well, it breaks down to drywall and painting. Try to make it as clear and simple as possible. Yeah. And it starts super simple, and then it gets complex to the point that we need to take our time to go ahead and make it simple again. And that goes down to clear SOPs, standard operating procedures, and processes for our team to understand so they can execute. And when you start to do that, you realize there's so many steps. Gosh, there's like 15, 30 steps here. What can we do? So then you're going to ask a different question. So what can we do to make this more simple for our crew to execute on? And you break that down based on the services that you have. So then, and the avatars that you have. So here, we're going to do, residential existing properties where we do interior and exterior. And then, we're going to do, as far as the other avatars, the new construction from drywall all the way through. So we're taking the pain away from our client and making sure that you're solving for that pain point in what services you offer. And then the rentals, the property painting, where we have a system down where when they come in, they get that opportunity to fail, they learn, they train, they work with their crews, and then there's leadership involved there, and then they know that this is the outcome that we're supposed to get. So you just break it down from that point, I guess. As far as the amount of different things, just as long as we're not, buying a McDonald's and starting to run a McDonald's, something separate, totally unrelated, or trying to, do something like, we're into landscaping now. Why would it be in landscaping? No, we do drywall and paint. We're going to stick with that. And we're going to take this as far as we can. And then whatever constraint that we hit, we need to solve for that. That's where the owner, so if I'm speaking to other owners out there, look at the biggest constraint that you have, wherever it is. If your marketing if you crush marketing and you have a great, you're 90%, like you're getting all these leads, but you can't do the work, then you need to figure out how to fulfill the work. That's the problem. Not something that you're strong in. This is the piece that we need to focus on. So it's where it's constrained before we get to the next level.
Great. Okay. Now, obviously another key part of this, right, is you're talking about getting good people, giving them the freedom to fail, empowering them, all that, right? That starts with getting good people, right? So hiring, onboarding, recruiting, training, nothing impacts your culture more than those things. So talk about how the Weyer Company brings in new people, how you find the right people, and how you kind of bring them in slowly and have these milestones that they need to hit in order to be that, really complete part of your team.
Yeah. Well, this is still a case study for us. Essentially, it's the biggest constraint that we have, which is training and recruiting. But I believe we're doing a good job, and we're only striving to get better. We have something called the Pro Path. So what I noticed as we brought people in and they learned this trade, and they had the grit, they had the gumption, and they learned along the way, that they kind of got to a position where they were like, well, why am I doing this? What is in it for me in the end? You need to make it about what's in it for your employees and your people. So we've created a way where we have a pro path for them to advance to and advance through. So here's how you start. You go through our training program. We'll teach you the skills, but we need to hire around our core values. So after we hire around our core values, that's the type of person. We have an avatar on the other side too. Just as much as we like to sell and know the type of customer we have to know the type of person that fits this culture as well first, and then we teach those skills. And we try to have a systematic way to teach those skills and give them a place to thrive and something to own along the way.
Yeah, this is a key one that I don't want people to miss, Shawn. I think lots of people will say, right, I hire for heart, train for the part, right? It's like, they know they should be hiring for their values, for their culture, and then training the thing that they need them to do. But what do they typically do? They look at a resume, and then they do one interview, and it's like, maybe, okay. So how do you do that? How do you identify for your cultural values in that interviewing process and the early part of their work with you?
Well, we make it as clear as we possibly can to the applicant up front. We tell them who we are. When I interviewed, I don't interview as much anymore for anybody coming in that's starting. I hire for the higher level and the leadership or other bigger key positions, like a recruiter right now that we're trying to hire for, ironically enough. And this piece though is I don't try to sugarcoat it for anybody. I say this is hard work. This is something that you're going to be you might be dog tired at the end of this job, but you're going to feel fulfilled when you're done if you really put in the effort to do it. But you gain these skills and you begin to like it more and more because it is a skilled trade. And once you learn, you get better at it, you realize that this can be really rewarding. And I just try not to give people a false identity to what it is when you're coming in here. Some people like to sell the dream, and I believe in that because we are, our mission is changing the industry. But like, I want to make sure that they know that it's not easy, and not everybody can do it. Yes. So really just showcasing that. As far as our interview process, we try to vet the best that we can by giving a phone interview, and then we do an in-person interview along with the lead of the department to make sure that they're a culture fit, and then they get a ride along. They get to actually see what this place is about. They get to see if they're welcome here. Like I always say, I use the great and great analogy. Like, hey, if this is for you, great, and if this is not, great. Like, because we just want to know that this is a place for you as much as it is for us.
Love that. Right. It's so interesting. We teach a 4-part hiring process, right? First of all, it's aptitude. Can they actually do the job? Second is culture, just like you talked about. Third is what we call observation. Right? Do you let them actually observe the job that they're doing? And then at the end of the day, say, can you see yourself doing this 5 days a week in 50 weeks a year? Right. So, and then the last step is what we call talk them out of the job. Right. And that's where you're giving them all the hard stuff, because so many of the business owners, it's like, oh, it's hard to hire. It's hard. I can't find good people. So they're tempted to compromise or like you said, sell the dream. And you want to sell the dream, but you also have to be clear about what part of the dream is still a nightmare, because we're not at the dream yet. And just right, because there's nothing more expensive than getting into a bad hire.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, we had the first quarter. This is what got me to say, hey, this is the key that we know that we need. We need to find this ambassador, this recruiter, when we were looking for that, because the first quarter we had 136 interviews. I don't even know how many applicants. We had 136. Actually, I'm sorry. We had 136 applicants. I don't know how many we passed over. We had 53 phone interviews that led to 26 in-person interviews that led to 9 hires. And only 6 got through the training program. So that just tells you how much goes into this. And it's the most costly thing. It's our labor. So how do we make sure we set that up for success the best that we possibly can, and make sure that we have that side out there? So back to the whole, work, like, what did you mention? Something about, like, work them out of a job, or what was that? How did you phrase that?
Talk them out of the job.
Talk them out of it. See, I love that, because I want to make sure they know that there's something here that it's gonna take effort. Yep. And you may not like it at first, but you will eventually if you see it through. I do the same thing for clients as well. Like drywall and paint. Drywall is the messiest thing you can do in your home. Yeah. So we need to make sure we shut the AC. We need to make sure we prep some up, but there's always going to be some minute dust there, no matter what we do. Right. And we prep it off the best that we possibly can. But this isn't going to be just perfectly glamorous when you're going through this renovation. And I try to say that up front. And the better you do that, the more real you are with people up front, on both sides, on the customer side and on the employee side, the better respect you get, and the better that someone understands that that's the reality of this. This is the reality. The reality is this is hard work. The reality is that you're gonna come in, and some jobs you're not gonna like, but you're gonna get through them, and you're gonna feel rewarded when you're done. And the same thing on the flip side for the clients. Like, hey, this project is gonna be messy, but we're going to do the best to contain as much as we possibly can through this renovation. You're not going to like that process, and you're going to see some different things along the way. But you will be happy with the results. So that's just being upfront with people. Yeah,
great. So now we've seen your hiring funnel, right? 136 down to 6. So you're very selective in who you take.
Yeah.
Now you're also very intentional about how you build the culture, right? As we talked before, um, you're really trying to balance that high accountability, but also with real care. Uh,
Yeah.
and we even talked about, you know, how Reed Hastings says at Netflix, the culture he wanted to build is not one of a family, but a team, right?
Yeah.
So talk about that, how those two sides of the culture, the accountability and the care that you're bringing to Weyer Company.
Yeah. So, um, a little example of team and family, like if your brother steers you wrong and ends up being a, um, you know, just not making good decisions, he's still your brother. You know, you still talk to him, you still love him as your family member. If someone has an agreement within this company that they're going to follow our core values, and I'll just say those real quick, it's trust. So we have to start a relationship with trust. We have positive attitude, and this is the one that you can tell when it starts to change. Then someone maybe just doesn't want to be here anymore, and that can change, and that's fine. Just be upfront about it. You know, sincere candor. And then uh, there's teamwork, because we work as a team. No matter what, even if you're out on the job alone, someone is scheduling that job, someone is making sure that you have all the product and everything that you need to complete it. And then there's accountability, and this is the big one. We own up to our mistake quickly and we correct it. There's no excuses. If something happened, what could you have done to go ahead and change it? And then there's reputation. This is something that, you know, I hold dear to my heart, and that's the hardest thing I think about relinquishing that control. Is it just takes one thing to ruin your reputation. And then there's something that we call the it factor. That's like the fit. That's if you actually fit this culture. That's something about you that was special, that was different. I hope to get to a place where when people recognize someone out in everyday life, that they're like, hey, I think, you know, that guy seems like he's someone that works at Weyer. Like I want that. That's what I'm striving for. So I guess it's those core values, and really to hone into that first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
another part of culture is, because we think of culture as who you are and what you do. So a big part of setting culture is rituals.
yeah.
So tell me about the Golden Squeegee and the role that that plays in your culture.
Well, I put together a lot of different things, and one thing that really stuck here was the Golden Squeegee Award. And I was like, how we do one thing is kind of how you do everything. And if you keep a clean van and things are organized, and you take ownership of your tools from the smallest tool to the largest, it it compounds into the job. It compounds in your everyday life. And we came up with this thing called the Golden Squeegee, and basically every week leadership goes through and rates the vehicles and the people that own those vehicles, so to speak. And we give out the Golden Squeegee Award, and it's stuck since we started it 8 months ago. And you should see these vans. It's getting really tough on how to select who is the winner each week. I mean, they've gone to custom glitter paints to to just the organization level is top notch. But I know that transitions into their job and into the pride that they take in their job. So that's part of that culture, I think, you know, and just really taking that ownership.
I love that. I know I have so many clients and leaders that I talk to that struggle with company vehicles, right? So I love that. I love that example of a way to build culture by accomplishing something that the business needs. So let's shift one more time here, Shawn.
Mhm.
Again, as you're elevating up out of the work and now monitoring a growing business, right? Because you got
Mhm.
40 people today and you've blown way past $1 million a year, right? So
Yeah.
what is it? What are the numbers, right? Because as you grow bigger, numbers are a big part of what you're doing, and knowing the right KPIs to monitor. What are the things you're tracking as a business owner to make sure that the company's on the right track?
So many things, but I try to push that back to the leadership team to own their numbers. So again, I said this a few times, but I'm talking about that ownership. And putting that in front of people. I've also noticed, I guess the things that I'm focused on are those numbers with, how many estimates are we doing? What's our closing rates? But then also our efficiency. I mean, there's just, you got to make it simple. So how many hours, how many hours was it estimated to do the job? And then how many did it take? And then making sure we're learning from that, and allowing that success for the people in the field, and then for them to know it. That's the other thing too. I think that is big, is um, all these things in our head as entrepreneurs and owners. We say, here, do this, and we went through like 9 steps, right, or 900 steps to get there, and we just say, hey, do this, but you don't really let anybody in to figure out why. And we need to talk through that, and we say, hey, here's the end result that we want, but here, you help me figure this out, and we need to talk through it. Or you allow your leadership to go ahead and come up with these steps to get to this outcome that you want, and you give them those opportunities to fail along the way, and then we talk through them and we work through them, and we understand why. So something that I used to do that was a big struggle for me is, like, I would have that for sure. I'd come up with these ideas, I'd go through all these things, and then I'd be like, boom, this is what we're doing. Everyone's like, okay. And you don't get much buy-in that way. Like, why? Yeah. So we need to say, hey, here's something that I'm talking about. Here's something that we're doing. What do you think about that? And then how would you get there? So one thing that we did recently, not recent, I guess it's relatively recent, within the last year and a half, is we transitioned into a different CRM for the company. And I mean, that was huge.
Yeah.
Well, from everybody over.
What were you using, and what are you in now?
We were using essentially just a task-based system that we uploaded, and then everything would be passed over from there for invoicing to Rachel. And Rachel behind the scenes was doing, hundreds of invoices, every 2 days. And, that wasn't going to scale properly. So we needed to come up with something a bit more automated. So focusing on that automation and figuring out a new system that would work. And we talked through that within our leadership meetings, for months, to finally decide on one and go through it and make sure that onboarding process to that happened. Same with the Pro Path, and same with our training system was, let's discuss with the crews and say, hey, I need your help as we bring new people on. Here's what we're planning on instilling. Here's what we're planning on onboarding. Are you guys in agreement with that? And can we help the next set of people that are coming through as we continue to grow? Like, can we help that along the way? Can you help train them as well? And can we do this together? And that communication was leaps and bounds than me just dropping it on everybody and saying, hey, this is what we're doing.
Yeah. This is so critical, business owners. I want you to hear what Shawn said. If you want people to buy in to your goals, you have to let them weigh in on your goals.
Oh, I like that.
Right? Because if you're not getting that buy-in, and I see this all the time as business owners, right? Shawn, you've probably been thinking about that transition to a CRM for 5 years.
That was, yeah.
And then we show up and make one decision, and the team's like, wait, what? Where'd this come from? So it's so critical to bring them along. And as you said, to get them to know their numbers. Imagine you're coaching a basketball team and they don't know the score until the game's over, right? How are you going to coach in the moment and help them improve if they don't know what the score is, right? So those are 2 critical components.
We have to figure out a way that they win. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, exactly right. You got to let them win and let them know what winning looks like, right? If we're tracking numbers, they need to know them so that they can influence them.
Absolutely, yeah. Whatever those numbers are.
So now, as you've been, as you've narrowed down your avatar, as you've brought in the right people, given them the freedom to succeed or fail, built a culture, and ready to scale, and tracking the right numbers, you've been putting all this stuff in place. So where are you going? Where's Weyer Company going in the future?
Well, it's the playbook, and really setting those playbooks right, and then to see if that can scale into new markets. First and foremost, it's to make sure that we fill the cup where we're at. We're in the Fargo, Grand Forks, Lakes area and surrounding areas out of this one shop and this culture here. But we got to know how to replicate that elsewhere. But we need to make sure that we're keeping track of those playbooks along the way, so then it can be replicated. And Grand Forks, I guess, is our test market, if you will. It's only an hour away, but we need to act as if it's like 5 hours away, and we need to see it function on its own before we go ahead elsewhere. But I think we have a capacity to be at 60 to 70 employed within the organization here, and then we'll scale out from there, and we'll just see where it takes us. But for the most part, just making sure that we have this momentum going on the flip side, and on making sure that we can take people in and train them up to get to a place where they need to be, and then we can go ahead and replicate that elsewhere.
Great. So talk about, just real quickly, what are some of those next things you want to do in order to scale? You talked about hiring a recruiter. What are those near-term things that you want to put in place to continue to grow the business?
Well, that's the biggest one. We need someone not only to drink the juice, but we need them to serve it. So they need to serve this out there to the people and let them know about Weyer Companies. And because if you don't know about it, then you can't do anything with it. So we need someone out there really striving for the company to be an ambassador, to pull people in, to know this is a great place to work, and that there's a mission behind it as well. And it's more than just the work and all the things that we set you up for in your success. So that, I think, is one of the biggest, that's the biggest constraint that I'm working on personally to get us over that hump. So then we have a funnel on both ends. That's the first thing. And then we are revamping our website. We're doing some things to help make sure that we can showcase these things that we're doing internally to the external world. And we really believe that that's going to be a key part of that growth as well, to make sure that people can see what we're doing, not just look at it from a surface level.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, that's the short term and long term.
Yeah.
It'll be fun to watch you achieve that vision. So now, as we wrap things up here, Shawn, I want to bring it back to you, right? Because there's a lot of business founders and owners who struggle to make different leaps within their business, right? From doing everything to doing some things to doing very few things and hiring a leadership team. Who have been some critical thinkers? Because we exchanged before we were on air, we talked a lot about books that we've got in common, favorite books. But who have been some thinkers that you've really that have really helped you get into the right mindset to continue to grow your company?
Yeah, well, at this point going forward, I listen to a lot of Alex Hormozi. I listen to a lot of A1 Garage, Tommy Mello. He's a big time operator and marketer. And those two people are real high. And then for self development and that, Ed Millett is a great one to listen to. These are 3 podcasts anyways that I listen to, that I really try to take in as much information as I can and learn from. Alex Hormozi, that's been big on finding that biggest constraint in the company and just focusing on that, just maintaining that focus and not doing anything else until you solve it. Like really just pound the pavement on that one thing and figure out ways to go ahead and solve it. As far as books go, one of the recent ones I listened to or read was Ben Hardy, The Science of Scaling. It's a great book. It's about taking that big, audacious goal. And, people usually throw out the 10-year or the 5-year mark. And I think it's just to kick it down the road. But like, if you take that and you put some urgency to it and say, well, what would it take to get that 10-year goal completed in like 18 months? Like, what would have to change? What would I have to do? And you can really remove the noise and the clutter along the way, and you can go ahead and jump in on that. So that's one of my most recent books that I've listened to and read.
Yeah,
that's been great.
I love that book, right? And let's end with this lesson for entrepreneurs, because it's an important one.
Yeah.
If we set a 10-year goal or even a 5-year goal, I can fool myself into thinking, that's way out, right? So it doesn't really change what I do today. But the future doesn't exist. All we have is the present. So the purpose of a goal is to change behavior today.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you set that goal and then compress the amount of time that you have to achieve it, then it's like, okay, if I'm going to achieve my 10-year goal in 1 year, I got to make some changes now, like hiring a recruiter.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, you got it. And that's one of the bigger things to get out that is really put that urgency on those things. Otherwise it just is it's not in your world today. So we're not even looking forward to it. You won't focus on that 10-year goal until you get to the 10 years.
Yeah. Well, Shawn, this has been awesome, right? I could keep going for probably another half hour, 45 minutes, but we better cut it off here. So really, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for sharing your journey.
For sure. Thank you.
I hope Building Love Businesses finds its way into your podcast list.
It already is, and I appreciate what you're doing out there too. It's really, I think it's helping a lot of entrepreneurs out there and a lot of business owners to really stay focused on what they should be doing to help grow their business.
Awesome. And for you listeners, if you love this show, please leave us a review and share it with someone else who's building something they love. You'll find links to the Weyer Companies and the books and the things that Shawn talked about today in the show notes. I'm Nathan Schock, and thank you for listening to Building Loved Businesses.